Why do 99% of people fail at emotional intelligence, while only 1% actually master it? I've spent years studying this exact question, and what I discovered will completely change how you see yourself and your relationships. Most people think emotional intelligence is just about being nice or managing your feelings when you're upset. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Emotional intelligence is actually the secret operating system that controls everything in your life: your relationships, your career success, even your physical health. And if you don't understand how this system works, you're essentially trying to drive a car blindfolded. Let me share something that happened to me last week. I was in a meeting, and my colleague made a comment that immediately triggered me. My heart started racing, my jaw clenched, and I could feel that familiar surge of anger rising up. But here's what most people don't realize: this exact moment is where emotional intelligence either makes you or breaks you. The old me would have reacted. I would have said something sharp, maybe rolled my eyes, or at minimum, my body language would have screamed my frustration to everyone in the room. But because I've learned to recognize these emotional signals, I was able to pause, breathe, and respond in a way that actually moved the conversation forward instead of derailing it. This is what I call emotional awareness in action. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be happy all the time. It's about becoming the observer of your own emotional landscape so you can choose your response instead of being controlled by your reactions. But here's where most people get stuck. They think self awareness means just knowing when they're angry or sad. That's like saying you understand music because you can tell the difference between loud and quiet. Real emotional intelligence goes so much deeper. Think about the last time you felt stressed or overwhelmed. What was really happening beneath the surface? Were you actually stressed about that deadline? Or were you feeling inadequate and worried about what others might think if you didn't perform perfectly? Were you overwhelmed by your to-do list? Or were you struggling with boundaries and saying yes to things you should have declined? This is where most people miss the mark completely. They focus on managing the surface emotion instead of understanding the deeper pattern driving it. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof by mopping the floor. You're dealing with the symptom, not the cause. Real emotional intelligence starts with understanding your emotional triggers. These are the specific situations, words, or behaviors that consistently activate your stress response. Maybe it's feeling dismissed in conversations, or being interrupted when you're speaking, or having your competence questioned. Everyone has different triggers based on their past experiences and core wounds. But here's what's fascinating. Once you identify these triggers, you can actually reprogram your response to them. Your brain is constantly looking for patterns and trying to predict what's going to happen next. When you understand this process, you can work with your brain instead of against it. Let me give you a practical example. If you know that feeling rushed or pressured makes you shut down emotionally, you can start to notice when that pressure is building before it reaches the breaking point. You might recognize the early signs. Maybe your breathing gets shallow, or your shoulders tense up, or you start feeling that familiar knot in your stomach. This early warning system is your emotional intelligence in action. Instead of waiting until you're completely overwhelmed, you can intervene early. Maybe you take 3 deep breaths, or you communicate your needs clearly, or you adjust your schedule to give yourself more space. Now, here's where this gets really powerful in your relationships. When you understand your own emotional patterns, you can start to recognize them in others too. This is called empathy, and it's not just about being sensitive to people's feelings. It's about understanding the deeper emotional needs and fears that drive behavior. That person who always seems critical or demanding, they might be struggling with fear of not being good enough. The friend who withdraws when there's conflict, they could be dealing with anxiety about confrontation based on past experiences. When you can see these patterns, you can respond to the person's underlying need instead of just reacting to their behavior. This completely transforms how you handle conflict. Instead of getting defensive or attacking back, you can actually address what's really going on. Maybe your partner isn't really angry about the dishes. They're feeling unheard and undervalued. Maybe your colleague isn't trying to undermine you. They're feeling insecure about their own performance. But emotional intelligence isn't just about managing difficult situations. It's also about creating positive momentum in your life. When you understand how emotions work, you can actually use them as fuel for growth and success. Take motivation, for example. Most people think motivation is something that just happens to you. Either you have it or you don't. But motivation is actually an emotional state that you can learn to cultivate. It's about connecting your actions to your deeper values and purpose. When you're procrastinating or feeling stuck, it's usually because you've lost that emotional connection to why something matters. But when you can tap into the feeling of pride you'll have when you complete something, or the sense of contribution you'll feel when you help someone, or the excitement of learning something new, that's when motivation becomes sustainable. This is why emotional intelligence is so crucial for leadership, too. Great leaders aren't just smart or skilled, they're emotionally intelligent. They can read the room, understand what people need, and create an environment where everyone can do their best work. They know how to have difficult conversations without making people feel attacked. They can give feedback that actually helps people grow instead of just making them defensive. They understand that people's emotions aren't obstacles to overcome, they're valuable information about what's really going on. But here's what I want you to understand: emotional intelligence isn't a fixed trait. It's a skill that you can develop with practice. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to strengthen this muscle. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you try to understand someone else's perspective, every time you communicate your needs clearly instead of expecting others to read your mind, you're building your emotional intelligence. Start paying attention to your emotional patterns this week. Notice what triggers you, how your body responds to stress, and what you do when you feel overwhelmed. Don't judge it, just observe it. This awareness is the foundation everything else builds on. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate negative emotions or become some perfectly Zen person. It's to develop the skills to navigate your emotional world with wisdom and intention. When you master this, you don't just improve your relationships or reduce your stress, you actually unlock your full potential as a human being. If this resonates with you and you want to go deeper into understanding yourself and building these skills, make sure to subscribe because I share practical strategies for personal growth every week. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new content that could help you on this journey. What's one emotional pattern you've noticed in yourself that you'd like to change? Share it in the comments below. I read every single one and often create videos based on your questions and experiences. And if you know someone who could benefit from understanding their emotions better, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful gift we can give someone is the awareness that change is possible.